Well, hello, my friend. This is Lew Ojeda, and this is Mediatrocities, the show that delves into movies, TV shows, and music. And we're recording here on February 27th, 2024, which means we're a couple of weeks away from the Oscars and the Razzies. And that means it's time for us to go over the treasures and turds of 2023, the best and worst movies of last year. And who better to do that with than to have my good dear friend here, Tyler Pistorius. Hello, Tyler.
Hello, Lou.
And thanks, Tyler. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Lou.
Absolutely. I just want to remind folks who are watching that you can help support Mediatrocities. Please help more support Mediatrocities by following my link tree, linktr.ee/LEWOJEDA. That will give you everything regarding me and for the show Mediatrocities, including, of course, our shows, our Mediatrocities channel on YouTube and the page on Facebook. All right, so let's get to it. Tyler, this has been kind of an interesting year for the treasures of 2023, hasn't it?
Yes, and interesting in terms of the fact that it was very hard to narrow it down to 10. There were a lot of great movies that came out in 2023. Yeah, the hardest part for me was to just get it down to 10, and it involved killing several darlings. And thankfully, some of those darlings are going to be on your list.
Yeah, and I had the same problem. Well, I mean, what a problem to have,
Right.
Whenever, when you run into a great year in movies, and I have to say that quite honestly, I can't think of a better year that I've had at the movies than 2023. It's been quite an astounding year, and that is more the astonishing given the trials of last year with several strikes going on.
Yeah.
and some big name movies not doing so well, and we are definitely going to be talking about that probably more towards the latter half of this program, where we talk about the turds of 2023. But let's go into the treasures of 2023, and I'm going to start things off with my choice of one of the movie treasures of 2023, and my first choice is Asteroid City, which shows up on my top 10. And here is a clip. First is Asteroid City, the best avant-garde film of the year. It's a film within a 1950s play about a grieving war photographer who takes his family to a kids' astronomy demonstration in the American West.
Be notified you are each the guardian of your own safety. Maintain alert caution throughout the following demonstrations. To Ricky Cho for his work in the field of aeronautical induction, the collapsing star ribbon of success. To Clifford Kellogg for his work in the study of particle disintegration, the black hole badge of triumph. To Dinah Campbell,
it's fueled by cosmic radiation instead of sunlight.
For her work in the area of botanical acceleration.
Unfortunately, it makes all vegetables toxic.
The red giant sash of honor. To Shelley Borden for her work in the realm of mineral fabrication.
I synthesized an extraterrestrial element. It's going to be added to the periodic table next year.
The distant nebula Laurel Crown. To Woodrow Steenbeck for his work in the sphere of astronomical imaging.
It may have applications in the development of interstellar advertising.
The White Dwarf Medal of Achievement.
While there, an extraordinary event takes place that shakes up the community of geniuses. Asteroid City is graced with hilarious and compelling performances from Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, and Tom Hanks. all sharing a mix of stoic expressions, intellectual evaluations of intense events, and fanciful whimsy, with virtually every outdoor shot looking like a 1950s picture postcard. Sometimes some of the criticism about Wes Anderson's films is that his films are so unusual that it's hard to um, kind of get into them, and I can understand the type of directing style that he uses, where the actors stand in pose in front of the camera, and where that can be sometimes restrictive. But I think that this is a really excellent fit for him, and I really do believe that he really kind of outdoes himself with this film, as opposed to even some of his other films. What did you think about it, Tyler?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I had to kill some darlings. This was one of them. This did not quite make my top 10 of 2023, but that is not taking away from the fact that it's an excellent film. I mean, what can we say? It's another quality film from another quality director in the form of Wes Anderson. The cast in it is just like an embarrassment of riches. It basically it could compete with another movie that's going to be mentioned on my top 10 of 2023. I love the style of it. I thought it was hilarious at times. I also thought it was absolutely touching in certain moments. And I agree with you 100% regarding your particular highlights for the best performances of the movie. But at the same time, I mean, you just go like top to bottom, like from the cast down. Everybody in it fits their role perfectly. Everybody's just firing on all cylinders, and it's an absolutely fun movie to kick back and relax and enjoy. Especially for an avant-garde comedy, that's saying quite a bit.
Yeah, and yeah, it really took me by surprise that the fact that this is um, a staged, all of this is a staged performance. I don't think I'm
Yes.
giving any too much away by saying it's all a staged performance, and
Mhm.
to still get um, good emotional reactions out of that film, knowing that's the situation that you're in, it's quite astonishing and a really really tough thing to do.
Oh, at 100%. The only thing about Asteroid City that I can say is that I can't wait to see it again. This is going to be one
Mhm.
that I think is going to be probably even better on a second viewing for me, to where I'm going to be deeply, deeply sad that I did not put it in my top 10. But it was, but I also saw 10 other movies that I absolutely love. So, yeah, Asteroid City, I 100% on board with you on that.
All right, Tyler, we're going to go to your first choice, and your first choice on here is, you let us know.
How to Blow a Pipeline. Yeah, this is number 8 on my top 10 of 2023.
Okay.
And Lou's got a trailer for us to play, and I will talk about the movie as it plays along. Let's roll the trailer.
All right, we'll do.
So, How to Blow Up a Pipeline is focused on a ragtag team of misfits. They are basically going on a heist of sorts, and it is basically right. This says, like it says in the title, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. These group of eco-terrorists, while engaging in this particular heist and this particular quest, as time goes along in the movie, we go back and learn about who each of them are and why they are embarking upon this. And as the film goes along, we find that this ragtag team of eco-terrorists are just ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances and in extraordinary situations, and they are, quite frankly, tired of the bullshit. Some highlight performances for me are from Ariella Bearer as Zochi and Sasha Lane as Theo. But this ensemble cast does fantastic work in this, and is also a nail-biting thriller. I would compare this to William Friedkin's Sorcerer, where it is a group of misfits that have to go blow something up, and the stakes couldn't be higher, and the clock is working against them. But as a nail-biting thriller, I found myself on the edge of my seat from start to finish. This was one that kind of slipped under the radar for a number of people, but as time goes on, this is going to be one that people will go back to and watch and really see something extraordinary about it. And it could not be more timely. And it also happens to be something about a very hot button issue. And it also manages to do it without feeling preachy or pretentious, because it's basically just people who are fed up with their circumstances and want to do something really drastic about the situation that they are in. So How to Blow Up a Pipeline, yeah, number 8 in my top 10 of 2023. Lew has also seen it and has a different point of view on it. And Lew, please tell us your thoughts on How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Well, I do believe that the writers and the director of this film, I'm sorry, I don't know the writers and directors.
The director of the film is Daniel Goldhaber, and the writers are Ariella Bear, who also plays a role in this, Jordan Joel, and also the director of the film.
Okay, and I do think that they have a good future in the movies. Now, this didn't quite make it for me. I didn't hate this film at all. I thought that there were strong performances in this. I think for the most part, there's some strong direction in this. I just didn't quite get and quite believe that the counter forces working against this group of people were strong enough in the film to make me believe that they were able to go through what is a quite honestly, yeah, a very harrowing project. That didn't quite fit for me, and also a couple of directing choices, especially in doing backtrack storytelling, didn't quite make it for me. But other than that, a lot of it is a solid film. It's just a mild no for me. Didn't quite make it for me. So those are my only quibbles with the film, really.
I think that's totally fair. Regarding the obstacles, the opposing forces, you're referring to the FBI agents. Okay, so now here's the thing. Personally, it's wise to not engage in any kind of activity that would have the FBI knocking at your door, because they will eventually find you. Yes. However, can I see perhaps one or two particular agents perhaps not digging deep enough when they should? I mean, the people who work these government jobs, they are human. Now, when it comes to working with the FBI, obviously, I'm going to, take into consideration that most of them are going to be very good at their job. However, there might be some that may not necessarily be particularly good at their job, and it could be the case with these two FBI agents, in which case there's a deleted scene where they are no doubt fired from their job for not catching this early on, and only catching 2 of the people. But that being said, I could see it working for some and also not working for others. And the other thing I could also see not working for some people is kind of the extreme, the very artistic freestyle presentation of the characters' backstories. It did work for me, but I can't see it not working for others. That being said, though, I do think people should check it out and just determine for themselves whether this is going to be something that's their cup of tea, or if it's something that maybe not be quite for them.
Yeah, you can check it out for yourself to see if you like it or you don't. I gotta say, of all the films that we're showing today, both our treasures and our turds, this is actually our only disagreement. So as to whether to watch a film or not watch a film.
And honestly, if that's our only disagreement, then I think we're doing really good here.
Yeah.
All right. So
okay,
enough about blowing up pipelines. We'll go on to yours. So sorry, we're talking over each other.
Yes.
Enough about blowing up pipelines and attracting federal agents. Tell us about your next step. Tell us about your next entry.
Okay, it doesn't involve pipelines or federal agents, but figure dolls that could pretend as such if they ever do make a movie. But this is a movie you dear viewers have possibly heard of. It's called Barbie, and here is my background review. Next is the blockbuster movie Barbie, about the world-famous doll who is forced to leave her paradise existence and encounter the real world after experiencing a massive glitch in her thinking.
This is the best day ever.
It is the best day ever, and so is yesterday, and so is tomorrow, and so is the day after tomorrow, and even Wednesdays, and every day from now until forever. Do you guys ever think about dying?
Later on, Barbie and Ken head together in the real world and find it's not as either one of them imagined.
What's going on?
Give us a smile, Blondie.
Why are these men looking at me?
Yeah, they're also staring at me.
Ooh, love that.
Wow.
Barbie and Ken go through the growing pains of childhood realism versus fantasy in one of the most dazzling looking films I've ever seen. It shows the true expression of human empowerment and the profound meaning of the toy's original intent with great humor and heart. Yeah, and we had talked earlier, you and I had talked earlier about using toys as a basis for films, and usually, that's a really terrible idea. And I did not see the Super Mario Brothers movie. Because of the commercial attachment to it, it makes me kind of cringe to see something that overly promotes a product instead of talking about the particular product and how it made a profound effect on millions and millions of people, especially young girls, of course. And this does so really brilliantly, especially with the great screenplay by Greta Gerwig.
Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Noah Baumbach. I'm getting tongue-tied here.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a terrific film, and truly enjoyable and worth the $1 billion that it's made. I believe it's well over $1 billion.
Yeah.
I think. No.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of another darling, I had to kill. This one didn't quite make my top 10, but I did see it. Actually, I even did the Barbenheimer, or in this case, I did the Oppen Barbie, where I saw Oppenheimer first, and then I saw Barbie. Barbie was a really good palate cleanser, and also I think the secret ingredients of making a really effective toy tied themed movie are two things. One, your movie should also be a celebration of everything that makes a toy special, and also tell a unique story within it. And two, you cast Will Ferrell as your CEO of that company. Because the other movie the movie that's reminded me of a lot was the Lego movie, which Will Ferrell also happens to be in. And that one ends up being kind of a celebration of Lego, and also tells a really unique story with it. And Barbie does the same, where it's a celebration of it, and it's also a very deep film that's about basically feminism and identity and all that. And I got to single out Ryan Gosling, who is just amazing in this movie.
Oh yeah, he is truly wonderful, and I am really glad that he got an Oscar nomination for this, because I called it that he was going. Although I said he was going to get a Best Actor nomination, because he's it's questionable as to whether or not he's actually he's got a great deal of screen time in this movie. And his role is really quite prominent, because he is one of the antagonists in this movie, and
I would argue probably the main antagonist of the film.
In a way, accidentally so, because he tries to he tries to grow and mature, but he learns all the wrong lessons. So when he goes in the real world and he goes to the library and he gets all these books on empowerment, it's like he learns all the wrong lessons of those.
It's just patriarchy and horses. That's all it is. One thing that also makes me really happy, not just his Oscar nomination, he's going to be singing "I'm Just Ken" at the Oscars. I'm so excited to see that. To see him do that live.
That could be the only reason why I watch the Oscars, quite honestly. But That would be great. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know. Maybe some people are gonna make some great speeches. Who knows? But anyway, yeah, Barbie, terrific movie, and you've got a very good movie coming up too. And yours next
Oh, yes.
choice
My next
is
choice at number 4 on my list is Past Lives.
Past Lives is about two people, Nora and Haesung. It starts with them when they were 12 years old and they develop feelings for one another, and then they go on a date that's set up by their parents. But then, through a fortuitous set of circumstances, one ends up moving to the United States of America and one stays in South Korea. And that relationship cannot happen. They reconnect 12 years later through Skype, and they seem to hit it off again, but then another set of circumstances happens. They still can't be together. It's a story about what ifs. What if things had worked out differently between the two? And that is further exacerbated when the two of them finally reunite face to face after decades. With Nora Moon, who's played wonderfully by Greta Lee, is now in a relationship with Arthur, also played wonderfully by John Magaro. Complicates things whenever Haesung, who's played by T.O.U., all three of the actors I just listed off should have been nominated for Best Actress, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor in their respective categories. It becomes a deep exploration of those what ifs. What if one of the characters had handled a particular situation with someone that they had feelings for a little differently? And for certain audience members, you could think about it for a little too long, and then by the time the movie is over, you got to find a place to be by yourself and have a much needed therapeutic weep. And it's also brilliantly depicted by the writing and the direction of Celine Song. I just learned that the film, which was photographed by Shabir Kirchner, had filmed it on 35 millimeter, which would explain the rich look of the entire film. It's also a movie about not necessarily the things that are said, but the things that are not said. There's a sequence that's done in one take where there are all the things that are unsaid. And it seems as if the two characters don't have anything left to say to each other, but there are still a few things that are being left unsaid. And the tension in that scene, I would actually say that the tension in it rivals that of the Trinity test and Oppenheimer. The thing about the performances is what makes them so special is and the things that they say and the things that they don't say, but they convey through their expressions on their faces and on their bodies. Lou, what did you think of Past Lives?
yes. This is one of the as you say, one of the darlings that didn't make my top 10, but it made my top 20. I think I put it in position number 12, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice.
It is a quite a moving film, and there have been other films this year that kind of went along the same the same path. Passages was one of them. Also, All of Us Strangers, all looking into relationships and the deep emotional relationships. And I love the fact that there are filmmakers like Celine Song and those others who are delving into this and not shying away from using the subtleties of the performances, people acting instead of acting out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Using their facial and emotional and their and their eyes to act instead of what tends to be the default for American films is to
Yeah.
be physical and to raise your voice or shout or scream or cry, yell out loud and all that. Basically overacting and
Yeah.
being preferred and pretending that that's going to be much more engaging instead of asking people to try and feel what it's like inside when you have these particular situations. I agree. All three actors that you mentioned here are really strong, and especially for me, TOU, who I think gives the best performance of the three, but they're all very, very good.
Yeah, and to kind of add on to what you were talking about, the last thing I want to mention is with Tio Lu and Greta Lee. There is a scene. It's a very long, extended shot that involves just the two of them. Throughout most of it, there are no words exchanged, but it's probably one of the most high tension scenes that I have seen of 2023. I'm not going to reveal what the scene is for those who haven't seen it, but you'll know when it happens because it's just basically one long uninterrupted shot. But it's like what Lew was talking about. It's not so much what's being said or what's being conveyed in like such an over the top manner, but it's what's not being said and what's happening just in the moment, in the now, and everything is completely grounded. So Past Lives, that number 4 on my top 10 of 2023.
Yeah, it's a movie that asks much of its audience and delivers because because you put some of the work in, and allow yourself to have this movie work on you. Now, if you want to know a movie that's a bit of the opposite of that, but still can work on you, that's my choice. Probably for a lot of people, completely out of left field, but this was my number 10 choice of the year, is the movie Bottoms, which I thought was one of the wildest movies I've ever seen. And here is my review of Bottoms. Makes my list because it's quite simply the wildest comedy of the year. Rachel Sennett and Ayo Edebiri play two high school lesbians who badly want to score with the most popular cheerleaders. An encounter with the star football quarterback lands them in the principal's office, and the girls talk themselves into starting a female fight club.
I'm gonna expel you both.
No!
Yes.
No!
Yes.
No! You have to understand that this was a misunderstanding.
Really?
We were just practicing for a self-defense club.
Self-defense, what is that? That's like a fight club?
Well, here's the thing.
Yes, a fight club where we fucking beat each other up and shit.
No, we don't.
Yes.
No, we don't. Shut up.
Okay, you know what? I don't care. Fuck it, I don't care.
You're over it. Okay.
Yeah, you can beat the shit out of each other while you perform the vagina monologues. Just stay in your lane until you're munching beaver at Wesleyan.
Yes.
Bottoms is a tightly wound farce, deftly using its broad stereotypes and genre assumptions to hilarious effect. The students are horny, and the principal and teachers don't want to be burdened with anything that interferes with a crucial upcoming football game. If the movie lets up for 1 minute, it collapses, but luckily, the jokes come at a frantic pace. I found myself laughing so hard and for so long that I forgot none of this would exist in a rational world, and that's okay, because great comedies like Airplane, The Producers, and Blazing Saddles didn't either, and Bottoms belongs among those greats. Yeah, I absolutely believe it, and I've talked to you about this before. This would be a highly successful trauma type movie back in the 1970s, if it were done. It is of that, I think, that high caliber of low class, and anybody crying out, this movie is about movies being woke. This is probably, I think, is as close to anti-woke as you can get, but is done with a burlesque style of making fun of all of these stereotypes that it is really quite a lot of fun. What did you think about it, Tyler?
I would say like anti-woke, but not to the point where it's like hardcore anti-woke to where it's offensive. Lew, the clip that you showed and that scene that played out, I was muted, but I was sitting here cracking up again watching that scene. I thought, to put it in layman's terms, and for lack of a better word, I thought the movie was fucking hilarious. This was another darling I had to kill. This is also my top 20. Same with Barbie and Asteroid City. I thought the movie was just hysterical from start to finish. If I were to describe this as somebody who hasn't seen it, I would say it's Fight Club meets But I'm a Cheerleader. Emphasis on But I'm a Cheerleader because of those kind of themes that it explores. But also that little bit of Fight Club where it's also kind of a cynical comedy of sorts. Although I think Bottoms will probably work for more contemporary generations than maybe Fight Club would. And I thought both of the lead actresses in it. I thought they were both fantastic in it. I feel like Bottoms would also make just like an absolutely great party movie where you just like get a group of people together and just like kick back and either just have a couple of beers or just have some pizza or even smoke a ball and just have a good time, because it is just a riot from start to finish.
Yeah, it's really it's incredibly clever. And Pauline Kael once wrote, and I'm paraphrasing here, that great cinema happens so rarely that you have to appreciate great trash when it comes along, and this is great trash. And I mean, and trash in the best sense of the word, of the wildness of like the Mel Brooks and the John Waters and that sort of thing.
Yes,
It
yes.
really is of that really great standard for it. So that's why, if anybody would ask me, why would you put it up there above Past Lives or some of the other movies that we're going to talk about a little later?
Yeah.
And it's like, because it does what it's supposed to do, in a more fulfilling way for me than maybe some others did.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say, if you want to ask why Lou put Bottoms over Past Lives, I'd be like, have you met Lew Ojeda? But the thing is,
Yeah.
is that I'm not going to argue with putting Bottoms in a top 10 of any list as long as it's not like worst of. I could probably see somebody putting it in their worst of, but I would not agree with that. But in terms of like putting it in their top 10 best of like 2023, I'm not going to argue with that. I laughed my ass off, and I was laughing my ass off again watching that clip. When we watch Bottoms again, I'm going to laugh my ass off all over again. So. Yeah, Bottoms
well,
rules.
here's another movie that we both laughed at certain places, and this happens to also be something a movie that we both love, and it's Tyler's.
Oh yeah.
Tyler gets to talk about this next.
Yeah, my next one is Poor Things by Yorgos Lanthimos, and we've got a trailer here. And yes, Poor Things is it features Emma Stone, who is basically created by the Willem Dafoe, who gives like an electrifying performance as the creator. And this movie, what can I say about it? It's avant-garde. It's artistically breathtaking in parts. It's hilarious. It's gross. It's at times uncomfortable. It's one of those rare art films and art comedies that happens to have a whole lot of sex scenes in it, because it is about the exploration of sex through somebody who is an adult, but also happens to have like a child's mind of sorts, because she's experiencing life as like a newborn who's still growing up, but still happens to have the same body throughout it. The thing with Emma Stone, I mean, what can be said about her? She's already an Oscar-winning actress, deservedly so. But I just feel that she just gets better and better and better with every performance she does. And she has struck up a magnificent collaboration with Yorgos Lanthimos from doing The Favorite prior to this. And also we have Willem Dafoe, who I think should have been nominated for an Oscar for his performance as Dr. Godwin Baxter. The makeup on his face, one, is such a beautifully constructed makeup job, but at the same time, Willem Dafoe, who's no actor has a face quite like Willem Dafoe. He's still able to completely express himself in that, and the vocal work that he does in it is really terrific. The other actor who ended up nominated for Best Supporting Actor, who's also equally brilliant in it and also hilarious, is Mark Ruffalo as the Duncan Wedderburn, the man who Bella is kind of seeing, but things are kind of hairy with that relationship.
Yeah, and he's just a downright cad.
Yeah,
he wants to completely exploit Emma Stone
right.
in every possible way. Yeah, it is quite a marvel, and it's number 4 on my list, by the way. So if anyone's wondering,
on my list is number 5, so very close.
Yeah, and what's marvelous is that this is of a world that's familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. So it has a deep connection to the way things looked, and all the costuming and all kind of looks like the 1800s colorized and blown up,
Yes.
to gaudiness, along with steampunk sensibilities and a mixture of Jules Verne fanciful things like the flying partial dirigibles
Yes.
that are up there on the tight lines, going around, and it's of a world familiar and unfamiliar to period pieces, and it's just, it's just a marvel what you can do with CGI and special effects, and create different worlds where most studios and most filmmakers will not take the time to do. And because if they take the money and run, let's make it cheaply, let's make it quickly, and let's just make something passable, or something that doesn't even look very good. And yeah, you're spot on about everything. The performances in it match the way this looks, the way this feels, the ways this plays out. And I told you when I first saw it, I said they had a zoom camera going deep into Willem Dafoe's character's face. And as soon as I saw that, you see that on the big screen. And as soon as I saw that, I said, they're getting an Oscar nomination for Best Makeup. No question.
No question.
No question about it.
Honestly, if they win, it would be a completely earned Oscar. I don't have much to add to what you said. I think I agree with you 100% on it. I will make a little funny anecdote about the movie Poor Things. This just released on Amazon Prime for streaming, and it comes with a content warning. But the only content warning that it provides is that the movie contains smoking. That's it. Nothing else. Yeah, you have to warn viewers that they are smoking cigarettes in this fuckfest art house fantasy comedy, essentially.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's a lot of like adventures, wild adventures of Fanny Hill, times 3. So
the oral fixations in this movie are through the roof. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Time for something else that shows up in both of our lists, and this is the Martin Scorsese classic. It's a classic film now, Killers of the Flower Moon, and I have a clip for that right here. The next movie that appears on both our top 10 lists is Killers of the Flower Moon, director Martin Scorsese's devastating chronicle of collective human evil in the American West of the 1920s. The film covers the systematic murder of Osage Indians in Oklahoma after the tribe became rich, discovering oil on their lands. Leonardo DiCaprio stars as a newly arrived fortune seeker, and Lily Gladstone, in a stupendous performance, plays the object of his affections. In this scene, the two meet for the first time.
He told me you was going with Matt Williams for a time.
You talk too much.
Oh, I don't talk too much. Just thinking who I got to beat in this horse race, that's all.
I didn't realize this was a race. I don't care for watching horses.
Well, I'm a different kind of horse.
Honkashi. Shomikasi Shekoshiajimi.
What was that?
Shomikasi. That's how you are.
I don't know what you said, but it must have been Indian for handsome devil.
Later, after they're married, she tries to quiet him during an oncoming storm.
We need to be quiet for a while. storm. It's powerful. So we need to be quiet for a while.
It's good for the crops, that's for sure.
Just be still.
Notice in the two scenes how the couple treads a tense thin line between love and mistrust. Killers of the Flower Moon is one of the most disturbing love stories ever made of a woman refusing to completely give in to her arranged marriage, but also a testament to the power of survival under seemingly insurmountable odds. Yeah, a very harrowing film, and one that when you see the scene there of the storm that's coming up, it's for folks who haven't seen the movie, it's not just the weather.
Right.
There's an ongoing storm of true hatred and despicable acts going on. And by the way, you saw shots there of Robert De Niro, who's in one of his very, very best performances of the in his life, I think, as a sort of the ringleader of some evil goings on in the village, of which practically everyone in the village takes their place in doing this. So a tremendous and savage warning movie.
I agree, and I would also call this an important film. This is number 6 on my top 10.
Number 5 on mine too.
Nice. Robert De Niro. Okay, so he's played some rather unsavory characters throughout his career. He's even played some unsavory characters for Martin Scorsese. This is probably the most despicable and terrifying character that he has played throughout his career. I would say he, along with Bernie Madoff in The Wizard of Lies, and that is not a small statement that I am making. But William Hale truly is like the face of like the banality of evil, and his performance in it is just like so wonderful. Like it's very underlay. There's like so many underlines of ulterior motives, but he comes at you with a smile. He's literally like looking at the devil himself in parts.
Yeah, another. I mean, he may not win the Oscar for it. He may not win the Oscar for it. It may go to Robert Downey Jr. But I mean, it gives you a sense of the strength of acting performances this year. And boy, there have been some really great ones.
And speaking of, as much as I love Emma Stone and Poor Things, Lily Gladstone, what a tour de force as Molly Burkhart in this film. She is like just absolutely staggering in this.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, I tell you, she and we'll talk more about another actress who I think gave the very best performance of any actress this year. But Lily Gladstone in this movie, she is consistently torn between loving this guy and truly mistrusting him, because she kind of sees what's going on, but she feels for a good deal of this movie that she's unable to stop it. And it's like I say, as far as like love stories are concerned, because I truly believe deep down in their hearts they truly love each other. But you want to talk about the most dysfunctional love, the incredibly dysfunctional couple that you could possibly imagine. This is one of them. Okay,
right.
This is really really devastating.
100%. I 100% with you on everything you just said.
Speaking of devastating, Tyler's got a movie that I have to explain because of when I started producing the podcast and started getting all my my lists ready and getting ready for this. I was not able to see, but Tyler was able to see his next choice for
the zone of interest. Speaking of the banality of evil and horror, yes. This is the latest from Jonathan Glazer, and this is I would say probably the best horror film of the decade so far. I know Talk to Me came out from 2023. I still need to see that, but I don't know if I'm going to find a movie so far that has made me physically unsettled from minute one all the way through the end. It's focused on the Haas family, who live in an idyllic home next to the Auschwitz concentration camp. And it's basically just a mundane view of how they live their lives. Like you see here in these trailers, this is what the scenes mostly comprise of. It's just sequences like that. There's a staggering moment where they're together having dinner outside, and you can see the walls that lead to the camp behind them, and far into the distance, you can see a train coming in that that you no doubt know is there to drop off more prisoners into this death camp to be executed. Steven Spielberg even said that this was the best Holocaust film that he had seen since his own Schindler's List. And I mean, who am I to argue with a great director like Steven Spielberg? But yeah, to say that it's an exploration of the banality of evil, I think is one, accurate, but also kind of undersells the movie. There's almost an entitlement to this family, whilst at the same time they are next door. They're butchering all these people, which is actually very tastefully executed. It could have bordered on exploitation if they had kind of lingered into showing the torture, systematic torture and execution of the Jewish population, but they don't actually do that. It's all meant to be implied, and it also leads to an absolutely devastating ending. And I could just even feel my heart sink. And the music in it by Michael Levy is one of the most horrifying scores I've ever heard in a movie in quite some time. By the time the end credits rolled, I could see people in the theater just rushing to get the fuck out of the theater. It was something else. The Zone of Interest, yeah, one of the best films of the year. And in terms of Jonathan Glazer's body of work, as far as I'm concerned, that man is 4 for 4 for me.
Yeah, like I say, it's a movie that I have not been able to see yet. Unfortunately, because of life and because of the producing podcasts and working and all this. And this is a good spot for me to call for the studios to allow for folks to watch whatever they nominate for Best Picture, all 10 nominees, for free, either on streaming or in the theaters. Now, people would tweet, oh, that's crazy, that's crazy. It's like, no. They can do it. They have the money to do it. And why not do a self-promotion that way? If you want to promote the best films of the year and say that these are the gold standards for which you say the film industry, it's the reason why their film industry exists. Okay, are these 10 movies? Let them watch it for free. Let them watch it at their convenience and be able to do that. But right now, for instance, we'll see that movie theaters are not doing so well. Okay, so they're cutting their hours, and it's great that they're re-releasing a lot of these movies, like American Fiction and Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest, and showing these in the movie theaters. But they're they have limited engagement, competing with the the Marvels and Madam Web and movies that are not doing very well. Okay, so that would be my plea to Hollywood. It's like, just release these movies. You want to make them available to the Academy so that the Academy voters can view them. Get them to us. Okay, let us view them at our convenience and in the easiest way that we can so we can catch up on them. Okay, that's my soapbox.
There you go. There you go. and I agree. I agree completely because Sandra Holler is in the Zone of Interest, and she is Oscar nominated not for the Zone of Interest, but for Anatomy of a Fall, which I didn't get a chance to see. I do want to see that, and I also want to see American Fiction. I also want to see American Fiction. I hear great things about it. So, yeah, come on, Academy, come on, studios. Throw us a freaking bone here.
Yeah. Hey, here's an example. I mean, as much as I would love to see this on a big screen and eventually would like to see it on a big screen, I saw it on streaming, but it's still fantastic. My number 3 choice of the best movie of the year is May December from Todd Haynes. And so here is my review of May December. My number 3 choice for Best Treasure of 2023 is May December, director Todd Haynes' acerbic, intense drama based loosely on a true American scandal. Natalie Portman plays a famous TV actress researching a woman accused of pedophilia almost 20 years earlier. Julianne Moore plays that subject, married to her current husband, played magnificently by Charles Melton. A delicate balance is threatened in this scene, where the actress investigates their lives.
Do you remember when you first met?
I don't really.
I don't know. Let me see. I met Joe. Well, I remember knowing of his family. I mean, they were the only Korean family in the neighborhood at the time. Yes. And my son Georgie was in the same year as Joe at school, so technically I would have met him there, but I don't have any memory of that.
Right.
Everyone's pretty close-knit here on the island, and you kind of recognize everyone. I know there was a point when he was friendlier with Georgie, but I didn't really meet him until he came to the pet store looking for a job.
It was summer after 6th grade?
7th. And then he started working there after school and on the weekends.
And what's it like with Georgie, your friendship?
I haven't really talked to Georgie much since then.
Georgie's very sensitive. He always was very, very sensitive.
What's your relationship like with him and your other kids?
How is that relevant? It's my understanding that the movie takes place between 1992 and 1994. Am I wrong? So why would you need to know anything that happened after that?
Well, there are things that exist inside people that don't necessarily come to head until later, and I try and look for the seeds of those things.
Most people believe May December is campy, and I can see how Portman Moore memes can pop up on Facebook in the future. But the film is much more than that. It's a great examination of the search for truth through art. Is it for legitimate purposes or for more disquieting reasons? May December takes a piercing look at our fascination with scandal-based media and lends to good questions as to whom it ultimately serves. And boy, was this quite the movie. I have to say also, it probably has the best ending of any movie that I've seen this year. The ending scenes with Natalie Portman, I have to say, almost punched me. It felt like it punched me in the gut, in a very good way. I was half horrified and half like smiling because of the when the ending of this movie came, and then the reason why, I mean, I really do think it's going to be a future movie where people are going to come up with campy memes, because I think it's going to catch up on people on how these 2 great performances. I mean, it's 3 great performances here, and more. I mean, the whole cast is, but it's concentrating on Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman and Charles Melton, and all 3 of them are absolutely fantastic in this film. I couldn't recommend it any higher than that.
I mean, it's number 9 on my list for all the reasons you described. Although it's not my personal favorite ending of the year, it is one of the best endings of any movie of 2023 for certain. And yes, in large part because of that amazing performance by Natalie Portman. Well, I think this might even be her career best performance so far.
I think so too.
Which
Yeah,
is not
I
which is
agree.
not a statement I'm making lightly either, because I mean she got the Oscar for Black Swan.
Yep.
But May December, though, my goodness, just like it's all just for the sake of trying to craft a performance. So it's wonderful to see her trying to fake sincerity with these people,
Mhm.
and then trying to craft this character. And I can't really say any more about it,
Right.
because
Mhm.
it's going to be giving away so much. But other actors in it, such as Julianne Moore and especially Charles Melton,
Yeah.
are also really terrific in this.
Yeah. Yeah. The last thing I want to say, if you ever want to be an actor, you better watch May December. Okay, because it's gonna teach you some lessons.
Yes, it will. Hopefully, some very valuable lessons.
And here's a movie Tyler chose that's on both our lists and want to talk about lessons being taught and learned. Here it is. And for
Yes.
Tyler's choice.
Number 3 on my list, The Boy and the Heron. And as we get the trailer going, so Hayao Miyazaki has teased that he was going to retire. After The Wind Rises, he announced that he was going to retire completely. But thankfully for us, probably the peak master of the medium in animation working today, comes at us with The Boy and the Heron. And it's a story about a boy named Mahito who loses his mother in a violent fire during the Pacific War in Tokyo. And after this happens, he happens upon a peculiar gray heron, and the heron leads him to a seal tower, which is the last known location of his granduncle. And the story takes us on a place of fantastical locations, and we meet all these wild characters and creatures. And it's ultimately an examination of dealing with grief. And it's also so beautifully animated. Some of the animation is just absolutely staggering, because you have the watercolor backgrounds. The characters are very fluid in their movements and their motions. Joe Hisaishi's score ties it all together into a nice, beautiful, melancholic, meditative, and at times hilarious bow. This is one of Miyazaki's funnier movies, but this is a more meditative, reflective Miyazaki. So this one, we take our time with this a lot more. So there are certain shots that will just go on and on and on. But in this, I'm just completely falling into the animation, just sucked into the world completely. Leading all the way to one of the most emotional endings of 2023, I would say. I'm not going to say I don't know if I would say it's the best. I'm not sure what the best ending of the year was, but this is definitely up there for them. For me, I found it to be an emotionally cathartic experience. I'm just really thankful as being a fan of the medium of animation, especially when it comes to storytelling, that we did get another film from the master of the medium, that is Hayao Miyazaki. And Lew, since this was also on your list, tell us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, you pretty much covered just about everything. He goes through the boy goes through uh, stages of grief, and those stages of grief and the journey in which he tries to deal with the grief of losing his mother in a violent way is expressed in, and I found this out in researching a little bit more about Miyazaki, is that The Boy and the Heron, Miyazaki gives Easter eggs or references to other movies that he's done, and other animations that he's done way back from his television days, so that this movie is kind of going through an explanation or an evaluation maybe of his own life, an examination of his own life, and knowing that he's up there in age, maybe he's thinking, he's as people may think about, you know, what their legacy is, what is the meaning of life, and I believe it was based on a book called How Do You Live? I believe it's
Yes,
called.
How Do You Live? Yeah.
Yeah, How Do You Live? And he was apparently very taken by that book, and I think this was an examination of that book in an animated form, in the form that he knows best, and I mean, yeah, the form that he knows best. If that's kind of understating Miyazaki, it's I don't mean it to be that way, because it's just legendary filmmaking. And
Yes,
and
yeah.
it in quite and like you say, quite moving, adventurous, and delightful, and just just a wonderful experience.
100%.
It's number sorry, I would say
Go
it's
ahead.
number 8 on my list.
Nice. Now, listen, viewers, I've not had the chance to view it in the Japanese, original Japanese yet, but I did see it with the English dub. And Robert Pattinson is the one who voices the Heron, and it's already got a very impressive voice cast, including but not limited to Willem Dafoe, who we just talked about in Poor Things, Florence Pugh, Mark Hamill, Christian Bale. But I will say, when it comes to Robert Pattinson as an actor, that man continues to surprise me. His voice work as the Heron is like next to none.
Yeah, he definitely he Pattinson comes up with one really good performance after another. We talked about Willem Dafoe having a long history of good performances, and boy, Pattinson is really getting up there himself too.
Oh yeah,
in quite the number of appearances that he's shown. Or performances that he's given, and appearances that he made too. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, time for the number twos. My number two this time around is Alexander Payne's terrific movie, The Holdovers, which I consider to be a period piece. And here is my review. My number two best treasure of 23 is The Holdovers, a fantastic recreation of a film dated as 1971, but with performances and approaches that make it as timeless as any film released during that notable decade. The ever-terrific Paul Giamatti stars as a tough private school history teacher assigned against his will to watch over students with no place to go during the Christmas recess. Joining him during the school's quiet time are the superb Davine Joy Randolph playing the kitchen manager grieving over the son she lost in the Vietnam War.
I heard you got stuck with babysitting duty this year. How'd you manage that?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose I failed someone who richly deserved it.
Oh, the Osgood kid? Yeah, he was a real asshole. Rich and popular combination around here.
It's a plague. And you? You'll be here too?
All by my lonesome. My little sister Peggy and her husband invited me to go visit them in Roxbury, but I feel like it's too soon. Like Curtis will think that I'm abandoning him, you know? This is the last place that my baby and I were together, not including the bus station.
And the wonderful newcomer Dominic Sessa as one of the holdovers going through family dysfunction.
Denise, are you kidding me? This poor woman is bereft, and all you can think about is some silly girl.
I don't need you feeling sorry for me.
See? I'm just saying, this was the first good thing that came with being in this prison with you.
Need I remind you that it is not my fault that you are stuck here? Do you think I want to be babysitting you? Oh, no, I was praying to the God I don't even believe in that your mother would pick up the phone or your father would arrive in a helicopter or a submarine or a flying fucking saucer to take you
dead.
The Holdovers is a period piece in the best sense of the phrase. It looks remarkable with impressionistic cinematography by Igor Brild, who deserves an Oscar nomination for this film. Director Alexander Payne wants the viewer to experience this as a landmark 1970s movie, and he succeeded far beyond expectations. Yeah, and it's a reminder to me. It was a reminder of not only of that period, but the fact that filmmakers, you can go back to it. You can go back to making films that are that you blueprint through some of the classic films from back in those periods, because those films had low budgets, had great actors, and some of them unknown actors who became much more known and got into larger budget movies and became superstars. I'm talking about people like Robert De Niro. And in this particular film, this is the actress Davine Joy Randolph, who I said I think gave the best performance of any actor this year. And boy, oh boy, that's a very, very tough thing to do. But you can see in her performance the different stages of grief that she has to go through, and some of the embarrassment that she has to go through. When other people are talking about the death of her own son, and the fact that even though there are a lot of people who say they feel badly for her losing her son, they're never going to know the way she does. And that makes it very, very clear in this film. It's a superb performance, and great performances overall. And I know, Tyler, you're probably going to talk about Paul Giamatti in this movie.
Well,
I've got plenty of things to say to that too.
Yes. Well, I mean, to finish up with a Divine Joy Randolph, I do believe she's going to win Best Supporting Actress for her role in this, and deservedly so. Paul Giamatti, okay, it's like the man was born and went through the life circumstances that he did that led all the way to him playing this character in The Holdovers, and the role written by Alexander Payne. I feel like it was meant specifically only for Paul Giamatti to play. I could not see anybody else play this role. And one little detail that I really love in this character, and I don't think they ever really call attention to it, but his right eye, I think, is supposed to be like a glass eye or something. I don't think they ever really call attention to it, but it leads to some really hilarious facial expressions, because he'll have one eye that's looking at the character that he's speaking to, and then the glass eye is looking straight on. So you have eyes going like this, and it's just wonderful to see. And he is absolutely magnificent in it. If I could, I would want to basically clone the Best Actor Oscar and give it to Paul Giamatti, and then give it to who I think is going to win, who we're going to be talking about soon. And one thing I want to say about the movie.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say, in Oscar history, there was a tie.
Yes, there was.
Remember, 1968. So
that's right. Barbara Streisand and Katharine Hepburn. That's right. I mean, it could happen again, and if it does happen again, I mean, I would be thrilled if it happened for the Best Actor category. And I appreciate that this is now going to be a new Christmas movie that I can go to, because The Holdovers is one that I definitely feel like is going to be more rewarding upon each watch. And the fact that it's all takes place, especially a good portion of it takes place during Christmas and does have Christmas themes to it, I think is going to make it a new Christmas classic. Not just like a great classic on its own, but also one that people are going to want to watch during the holidays.
Yeah, and I was telling you about this. I mean, if you're if you are very, very cynical about Christmas, you've got Bad Santa. If you want to feel eventually better and watch characters who kind of go through their own problems and have some sort of resolutions, okay, in a film where they somehow are starting on their roads to their own recoveries, and in a way, this is the movie to watch.
100%.
All right. Tyler has got maybe to some people a surprise for the number 2 film, and Tyler's number 2.
Well, for those who know me, this will not be a surprise to them, but yes, a Godzilla film in the year 2023 made my top 10 at number 2, no less. My number 2 choice is Godzilla -1, and it's essentially a remake of the 1954 Ishiro Honda classic, Gojira. This film is set 2 years after World War II, and the main character is a kamikaze pilot, a failed kamikaze pilot because he failed in his mission and is dealing with the guilt over having failed his mission and feels like that he is a man who's living on borrowed time and that he should have died when he was in the line of duty as a soldier of the Japanese army. And at the same time, who else but the king of the monsters comes in and wreaks havoc in Japan. And I would say this, the original and Shin Godzilla, this particular depiction of Godzilla is the king of the monsters at his most terrifying. This film pays tribute to Hollywood classics such as Jaws. In particular, there's a great sequence where it's a wooden tugboat that's trying to get away from Godzilla, and it literally is like the shark chasing after the boat with Quint, Brody, and Hopper. And in that moment, you get to see the force that is Godzilla, who is completely created in CGI, although it had a staggering budget of only $15 million, which is a fraction of a couple of the movies that we're going to be talking about in our Turds list, where this movie puts it to shame. You see that Godzilla in the real and recognized in all the CG glory, you see in his eyes just how much of a menace that he is. And there's a lot of weight that is into the character of Godzilla with how slow that he moves in the water, but then you see like the scope of the boat, so you see just how massive he is, and there's also a weight to the destruction that he causes too, which draws the viewer in more. And I think one of the great strengths about the movie is not just the spectacle and the horror of Godzilla, but it's also in its humanity. With the characters that it explores. And when it comes to the Japanese citizens who come together to unite and figure out how the hell are they going to stop this thing that is literally laying waste to the city in an unspeakable manner. Luke, what did you think of Godzilla -1?
Well, I thought it was number 9 on my list, so it made my top 10. So, yeah, you're spot on about everything about this, and I want to reiterate: American studios should be embarrassed
Yeah.
for 2023 for the dreck that they came out with hundreds of millions of dollars spent, and this movie at a fraction of a cost, $15 million. Last year, Everything Everywhere All at Once, $25 million at the highest. Okay, and movies that we'll be talking about soon, and not worth the paper, not worth the greenbacks that they're printed on, you know. And you're absolutely so right. When you have, American superhero and action films, and this is the best action film of the year, by the way.
Oh yeah,
easily. Think that big flashing lights and fast moving, fast motion and ADHD sort of ideas or motion in movies are gonna be thrilling, and no, not always. You have to know how to use them. And when you were describing the wooden skiff trying to get away from Godzilla,
yes,
and how Godzilla is just slowly, it looks like he's slow, but watching it from afar, he's moving slow, but understanding you get the enormity of this creature, because he looks really slow, but he's fast as hell, because that skiff is having a very, very hard time getting away from this creature.
Right.
And the eye and the piercing eyes it has above, looking above the water, with the menacing look that he has, and the regrowing fins, which is a very, very clever added touch. It's thrilling. I mean, it's a very, very thrilling experience. And what you mentioned about, of course, the backstory is lifted from American films, but American film storytelling from decades ago. But Terrific, terrifically used. And every great action film is depends on the human element. It's the human element either makes it work or makes it not work. If the human element is not compelling, your action film will not work. Doesn't matter. And remember, and Tyler will tell you too, Godzilla is not on every single moment of this picture.
No.
He's brought on at key moments when there are attacks, and they make it work. When in a swish of a tail or a breath, people just are swiped away as though you would put your hand on a table and just swipe something right off the table. I mean, that's how expendable these human lives are, to this creature, and it's completely terrifying. And once again, too, the atomic heat ray, is an atomic ray.
Yeah.
That, you know what I mean? And that's the thing about this is that, imagine this for a second. You're bringing back a creature, okay, that is for 50 years. Okay.
Almost actually 60, almost 70 years. No, 70 years. This is the 70th anniversary of Godzilla is this year.
For 70 years, for 7 decades, you've had a creature, and for at least 6 of those decades, he's been cuddly, because it's a guy in a suit, even to the point where, like in the 1970s or early 80s, he's a Saturday morning cartoon character. Okay, cuddly, and you have to go from those memories of what a Godzilla is to making him a horrifying creature, more horrifying than the original. Okay,
yeah,
because this is the best of the series easily.
And the thing is, and make it as horrifying as the original. That's not a small feat, because the original is an allegorical representation of the atomic bomb that ravaged Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And how do you make that scary again? And this movie figures out a way to do it.
You go back to its roots.
Go back to the roots and then retell it, and even take it back to that time period, which I thought was also ingenious. And the fact that the main character was a kamikaze pilot of the Japanese Army of World War II, fantastic. Like, you've already got me hooked with a character like that.
Yeah, obviously the filmmakers know what they're doing, and I can't wait to see the next one.
It's good to be the king.
Yep. All right. Okay, now it's time for the top treasures, the number ones of our choices, the number one treasure of 2023, and my film is a film that may have been misunderstood, may not have been seen by a whole lot of moviegoers, but my choice is Kelly Reichardt's excellent, superb film called Showing Up, and here is my review. The very best treasure of 2023, in my opinion, is Kelly Reichardt's masterpiece, Showing Up, a marvelous look into an Oregon arts community and one of the most ingeniously sublime films I've ever seen. Reichard consistently found a muse with Michelle Williams, and in this film, she plays Lizzie, a sculptor who has an important upcoming art show. While struggling to get her pieces ready, she has to deal with a whole range of interruptions and nuisances, from having no hot water to family tensions to artistic rivalries. It's one of the best and funniest portrayals of functional depression that I've ever seen in the movies. Showing Up is filled with great natural beauty, art pieces inspired by that beauty, and jealousies always simmering underneath a layer of communal cooperation and support. Somehow, though, it all works out in the end as a true human spirit shines through the art village, foibles and all. It's a film that left me with a sense of great hope and appreciation for all these different characters and for human nature in general. I left the film with a deeper appreciation of artistic inspiration, even if it comes from seemingly mundane everyday activities from ordinary individuals. I'm honestly quite surprised this film did not do so well at the box office and had twice as many critics praising the movie in the Rotten Tomatoes meter than positive audience reaction. I'll talk more about this disconnection shortly, but what I can tell you right now is that Showing Up is easily my choice for Best Film of the Year. As of right now, it is not released on DVD or Blu-ray here in this country. It is released on streaming. I would love to see it released on disc through a great label like Criterion. Why don't you give it a watch if you haven't seen it, and let us know in the comments what you think of it. Do you agree or disagree? And I mean, we're talking about a whole bunch of characters in a situation where there's, there's a bit of stress because they're trying to make it as artists, and trying making it as an artist in America is just not very easy at all. And and they go through some of the things that they've learned, some of the stuff that hasn't been helpful in the way in what they've learned, like so for instance, jealousies, and even though they want to work in a communal way, they still have jealousies. They still kind of use labor in sort of exploitative ways, and in there are scenes where people are knitting, and it looks like kind of like the knitting looms of the 1800s, where the camera trucks down a series of people working frantically, just like in the worst of capitalism. But it all, it all. All of these people, you get a feeling, are working towards the same goal. And towards the end, I got a real, I was enthralled with the idea that all of these people can still work towards the same goal and the same idea of eventually trying to help out as much as they can in the best ways that they can. And I think it's, to me, it's a very hopeful view of humanity, and I really, really love this film.
Well, for me, going back to Killing Darlings, this was the hardest darling to kill, because this made 11 on my list. It wasn't my top 10, but then I saw the zone of interest. That being said, though, I agree with everything that you said about this film. As somebody who is a creative, who actually just finished a short film called Death is Business. I was on that as a writer and a producer, and the director of that was my good friend Matt Weinstein. As a creative myself,
there's a plug right there.
There it is, yes. Which is currently in the film festival circuit. We're entered that in the film festival circuit. But enough about my work. I just say, as somebody who is a creative and as somebody with depression, I identified with this movie on a lot of levels. Kelly Reichardt and Michelle Williams, they're like De Niro and Scorsese, or De Niro and DiCaprio, or Lanthimos and Emma Stone. It's what a wonderful collaboration the two of them had struck. I think it was Meek's. I don't know if it was Meek's Cutoff or Wendy and Lucy was where it started.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But their collaborations together have been really, really fascinating, and I think this kind of like a culmination of that collaboration into something really special. Now my number one, which we won't get into just yet, it happened to be one of the biggest movies of the year. But I like that dichotomy of mine being one of the biggest movies of the year, and then here's this one that definitely flew under the radar for a lot of people, but I think has a lot more going on than a lot of people who had seen it may have perhaps suspected. And I know Lou will get to that in a bit, but for me personally, I wish that this had been seen more and probably even appreciated more by people, because I have a feeling that as time goes on, people will kind of look at this and go, we probably shouldn't have slept on this, because especially if anybody who's involved in the creative arts, or if anybody who suffers from depression or anxiety, I think this is going to really speak to you like it does to me. And it's also a very funny movie too. But it also doesn't shy away from the realities of having anxiety and depression.
Yeah, and two very quick things. Michelle Williams gives, I think, I as I described, I think it's performance, one of the best performances of her career, and definitely I think one of the best portrayals of a working depression that you ever see. Because in movies you see that depression, it's somebody's drinking and they can't get off the couch, or they're laying in bed, and all of those other things. And it's not that that's inaccurate, but I think but I think what gets overlooked are the people who have to work with depression and work under the gun, because she's got a project due that's like she's got an opening that's due in like a week, and all of these things happen, and all of these pressures mount up on her, and her having to work through all these. It lends to great comedy in this. There's some really great comedy. And yes, and Tyler, to your point, where audiences seem to have been unappreciative of this film, the audience scores for this was on just 48 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I feel maybe that it's because they might not think that this is cinematic. Like I've heard people, I've heard and read people describe this as being slight, so like because she's working in a small college, she's an artist in a small college, then her show is not as cinematic as like getting the tie-breaking point in a game, or defeating a huge creature, or Lex Luthor or something like that. And my point is that even the small stuff is not only cinematic, but it's going to should reflect upon the lives of more people than do the accomplishments of superheroes. Most of us are going to want to try and accomplish what Lizzie does at that level, than say become a multimillionaire or billionaire or whatever. So that's those are the things I think audiences might be missing on.
Yeah, and the thing is that for me, even if it's like building up to just kind of a small art gallery gathering in a college town, I find that more relatable than getting into a fight with General Zod from The Flash. Hint, hint, we might be talking about that later. Not in the treasures category, that is. But no, I found this to be very relatable. I found myself easier to identify with the characters in this than certainly some of the examples that you were mentioning earlier. So I'm hoping as time goes on, and as Kelly Reichardt and hopefully with Michelle Williams, as they continue to work together, hopefully people will go back and start to go through their collaborations together, or through Kelly Reichardt's filmography, and come across this and see that there's a lot going on with this that makes it really special.
Yeah, I think Reichardt is one of the most underrated film directors out there today, easily. So, okay, Tyler, it's time for your number one film. You might have heard of this.
Yeah, it's a little known film called Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, and by little known I mean it's almost made $1 billion at the box office, and has garnered not only critical acclaim, audience acclaim, but is also expected to win big at the Oscars. But that's not why it's my favorite. The reason why it's my favorite is because it's a fascinating retelling of one of history's complicated figures, J. Robert Oppenheimer, who is played to perfection, in my opinion, by Cillian Murphy. And I want to examine one scene in particular that really makes this performance special.
When we initially presented the clip for Oppenheimer, we had an isolated scene that I wanted to talk about, which I felt was the best scene in the entire film. It's when Oppenheimer gives a speech inside of a basketball stadium, and he has just learned that the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki had taken place. He was not told when it was going to happen. He found out at the same time as everybody else. And here he is to give a rousing speech for the success of the effectiveness of this breakthrough into a new world. Through Nolan's assured direction, through Jennifer Lame's brilliant and at times experimental editing, to an absolutely magnificent performance by Cillian Murphy as J. Robert Oppenheimer. As he is presenting his speech to the crowd, everybody in praise and applause for him. After all, he was the director of the Manhattan Project, and the project was ultimately a grand success. And for as brilliant and as at times carefully articulated as we see Oppenheimer throughout the film, here the speech that he gives is remarkably tasteless. I bet the Japanese didn't like it, is one of the lines that he says, which is met with uproarious applause, followed by a shriek, a scream that cuts the sound out from all around him. And he starts to basically have a mental breakdown of sorts, where he's envisioning the effects of the atomic bomb, including but not limited to a shot of a woman whose face is peeling off of her head, portrayed no less by Christopher Nolan's own daughter, Flora, which I thought was a really fascinating choice. Then it's met with the snowfall of ash, essentially, and the sound will even cut out whenever he makes another statement saying something to the effect of, "Oh, wish you could have used this on the Germans," and then everybody stands up and you only hear the seats moving back. And that's when everything seeps deep into horror, because you even see him stepping inside of a charred corpse of what looked like a small child. Now I become death, the destroyer of worlds, indeed. That is my favorite scene because I think it completely encapsulates what Oppenheimer is at its core. It is an examination of a truly brilliant yet complicated mind who, like it or not, ushered us into this world that we live in today. And that is, I think, probably for the worst, especially by the indication of the film's ending. And it's all so wonderfully acted, including but not limited to Emily Blunt, who plays Kitty Oppenheimer, Florence Pugh, who plays Jean Tatlock, and then there's, of course, the Salieri to Oppenheimer's Mozart, and Robert Downey Jr. as Admiral Louis Strauss, in what I think is probably the best performance of his entire career. Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss is a fantastic antagonist. He is a wonderful examination of the pettiness of man. This movie does feel like a culmination of Christopher Nolan's life's work, to put it in the words of Robert Downey Jr. And I find the results to be absolutely staggering and astonishing.
Effects of what Nolan does as a filmmaker here are basically kind of like a culmination of his life's work, and I think the results are absolutely astonishing.
This is one of the darlings. They say were killed, but I don't want to say that I actually killed the darlings because honestly, it did not make my top 10. And originally it made my top 20, probably at around 16, 17, 15, 16, 17. The main reason why I had the problems with it was that I had seen this in a format that I would imagine Christopher Nolan would have liked. The first time that I saw it was as a 70 millimeter film print in a local independent theater. I do believe that the mixing between the music and the audio dialogues within the film print were such a mismatch that I could not hear the dialogue, a lot of the dialogue, especially during the first hour. And when I subsequently saw it on a digital format, it was better.
The first time that I saw it, it was a laser projection in Batavia. And then the second time that I saw it was on the IMAX 70 millimeter in Indianapolis. Both times I could hear everything clearly. I was able to hear the dialogue very well throughout both of those. There was one instance where I did take my father to a 70 millimeter screening. It was at an AMC. The audio was okay. There were some portions of it where it was a little bit hard to hear at times, but I had seen it enough times where I still knew what they were saying. But I mean, it was his first time, so I kind of had to tell my dad what they were saying, which was fun in its own way. But the issue that I had with it was that I think the bulb of the projector was not working as well, or it was probably like on its way out. The clip that I showed where Oppenheimer walks out of the basketball gym and he's walking off. When I saw it in that format, I could barely see what was happening. The picture was so dim. So unfortunately, the presentation of Oppenheimer has been, understandably mixed. And I think it just kind of goes to show that sometimes I'm just really glad that Blu-ray came out so great, because it makes revisiting the film. You can actually hear everybody and everything like that, so it's not an issue. But I mean, that's the thing. If it affects your ability to enjoy the film, it affects your ability to enjoy the film.
Much of this film is a political thriller, and I still stand by that statement.
I completely disagree, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a disagreement about it, but the reason why I say that is because much of the film is him being questioned about about the Manhattan Project, and the idea behind all this questioning is the possibility that he might be a suspected communist or sympathizer with Russia. And so in that sense, I think there's a political thriller tone to this. And one of the choices that Nolan makes is using music in a great deal of dialogue scenes, and I felt that it wasn't necessary to do it all in all of them, and I think kind of distracted from from trying to make sense of all of the characters that were involved in this, because if this is if we're talking about looking at a historical view of all the players that are involved in this, the music kind of distracted from my being able to concentrate on what characters were saying. There's still a lot to like about this movie that's really terrific. The scene that you showed, I think, is probably, everybody talks about the atomic explosion. I think what you saw is the best scene in the movie.
Thanks.
In my opinion, it is, that's the takeaway for me. Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic. Cillian Murphy, I think, is excellent in this film. Emily Blunt is very good in this film. A lot to like and to see in this movie. I just didn't quite like it as much as you did, but it's still a strong movie.
I do want to address the 2 points you made when it comes to the choice of having the music during a lot of those political hearing scenes. It is a stylistic choice. I think it's going to work for some and work for others. It did work for me. It obviously not as well with you, and I think that's understandable. When it comes to it as being like at its core a political thriller, I agree that it is like part of the genre of it is a political thriller, but I don't necessarily agree that it's at its core a political thriller, because it's very much, for me at least, is a character study. It's an examination of what Oppenheimer saw and what Oppenheimer thought. I think the political thriller aspect of it is important. It's definitely a very, very much a part of the fabric of the movie. But to me, at its core, it's about a man, a brilliant man, but also a complicated man, a deeply flawed man who's kind of coming to grips with what he had created. And at the same time, he's also kind of seeing his credibility completely fall apart, culminating into what is my personal favorite ending of the year, which is a very kind of a horrifying view of where things are going to go, thanks to basically thanks to the selfishness of humanity, and also the fact that we have these horrible weapons of mass destruction at our fingertips. It leads to what I think is for me at least the best ending of the year.
What's very interesting is that our number one choices of the year, you know,
they're like
are
opposite.
of two opposite. Well, yeah, they're like two
Yeah.
flip coins of you know, the possibilities of humanity,
Right.
and the bad possibilities and the good ones, and so
I think it's a cool dichotomy, and I like that we're giving Showing Up some attention. I think because Oppenheimer, yeah, we know it's gonna win a whole bunch of Oscars, but I'm glad we're giving some attention to Showing Up. And again, I do feel bad for having to cut that from my top 10. But it's a great film, people. Please go see Showing Up. It's terrific.
if you want to do a double feature, then you can call it Showing Oppenheimer. So
wow, I would definitely start with Oppenheimer first, and then like give yourself like a few hours, and then come to Showing Up, and it's like, oh, this is actually, but oh, this actually feels kind of nice. Okay.
We've just gone through our movie treasures of 2023, the movies that made us smile and gave us a great time and a great lift with the art of movies. Now we're going to be sinking like a lead balloon.
And talking about the fart of movies.
That's right, the farts of movies. What's coming up now are the Mediatrocity movie turds of 2023. And I ended up watching more bad movies than Tyler did. So what's going to happen
You're
is...
a trooper, Lou.
Yeah, so I know. Our first choice, and actually I'm going to go through three choices that I had of films that I had seen that Tyler luckily has not seen, lucky for him, are the following three, starting with Spinning Gold. Spinning Gold was a major disappointment, recounting the story of Neil Bogart, the fascinating music executive who scored many hits for various record labels and later founded the monumental Casablanca Records, home for music legends like Kiss and Donna Summer. The trouble with Spinning Gold is that it's misformatted. With the expanse of Bogart's career, it should have been a miniseries or a comprehensive documentary. Instead, the movie tries to take on too much, and entire scenes appear without any further development later in the movie. Such an example is this meeting with Gladys Knight.
I can't believe I'm singing with Gladys Knight. Let's keep going, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, I like that. What if it went? My world, his world, our world, mine and his alone. I've got to go, I've got to go, I've got to go. I've got to go, that works, I've got to.
That might seem nice, but it doesn't lead anywhere. The movie also makes Bogart's financial troubles a central theme, which made him look like a crass moneymaker rather than someone who values artistry over dollars. Inside misuses the great Willem Dafoe in what should have been a short film or a Twilight Zone type episode. Dafoe plays an art thief trapped in a targeted penthouse that seals up like Fort Knox. Normally, it would be interesting watching the legendary actor playing a character going insane as he did in The Lighthouse. Instead, we get to see Dafoe lick the insides of freezers in a desperate search for water, or seeing his poop in a wading pool, all for some nebulous idea that maybe he's being played? Well, yeah, but when this movie clocks in at 105 minutes, it left me not caring and wanting to leave the theater in what was perhaps the most pointless movie of the year. But neither of these movies had the sizable budgets of Shazam! Fury of the Gods, an opulent, boring mess of a movie with an immature teen who transforms into an immature superhero adult whenever trouble strikes. In this case, the threat to mere mortals is brought by Lucy Liu and Dame Helen Mirren, and you don't know how much it pains me to read her title in connection to this horrible movie.
Stay back! They're using the staff to take our powers!
Every time I see a force field pop up in a multi-million-dollar movie, I want to hit the snooze button because I know I'll be able to take a nap for a while. I just did not care for any of the characters in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, especially when the lead is one of the most irritating superheroes in the movies. Very irritating. Also, he kind of falls in the category of the Ryan Reynolds wannabes. The smart, wisecracking action hero that Ryan Reynolds can do, but unfortunately, he's a virtuoso better than some of the others.
Zachary Levi in this case.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, those look like the most movies of all time. I obviously, yes, like as you mentioned before, I had not seen either of those. I was a bit curious about the one with Willem Dafoe until I saw the reviews, and then when you told me about it, I was like, okay, that's highly unfortunate because like a one-man show of sorts with Willem Dafoe does sound really fun, but if it's there's a scene dedicated to him looking at his own poop, I'm not entirely sold. Shocker, I'm not completely sold on that premise.
Sometimes I mention that the problems with some films is that they don't know what they have. So if they have a better play than a film, or if they have a better short film than a longer film or than a feature, which is what this could have worked as. This could have worked as a short film, but not at 105 minutes. It just went on too long. Inside is a bad movie, but it's not because of Willem Dafoe. He got caught in a bad film, and he's been in other really good films this year. You don't need to see him in this one. He's been good in Asteroid City. He's been good in Poor Things, which we talked about, Weather Treasures. Both of those are in our treasures.
Yes.
Watch him in that movie.
Yeah, and the thing is that having just completed a short film myself, like here's the thing, filmmaking is a very difficult process. I think the most difficult part about making the movie is making the movie. And the thing is, like, you have a pretty cool idea for a premise, but sometimes it comes together, and it's a miracle if it ever gets made. And sometimes when it comes together, you can either have something that's good, you could have something that's really great, or you could have something that falls short of expectations, unfortunately. And that's just kind of the nature of it. And I'm sure there'll be people thinking like, well, Tyler, you're a filmmaker yourself. Like, who are you to be the one criticizing movies? Like, well, the thing is, like, we need film criticism. I myself would be open to criticism of my own work because I want to continue to get better at this. And I think it's completely fair for people to have their own perspectives on certain movies, especially if something is good or if something doesn't live up to a good enough standard. And it could be for a multitude of reasons because it's a difficult thing to do. But at the same time, though, it's like we can't treat everything as like, well, we're going to cut this one to slack because filmmaking is hard. It's like, yeah, filmmaking is hard. It's never not been hard. But the thing is like, like what are we grading here? It's like if we're going to give everything a pass, like us creatives just give everything a pass just because we're part of it. It's like, no, like I think we should be able to the idea of, holding everybody to a high standard because, it affects, the quality of the work. And last year was very good, but unfortunately, we've also had some big ones, like you mentioned here, Shazam, where it does not live up to expectations.
The next turd that's on our, at least that we have talked about, I have to explain something. My apologies, my bad, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to get a film clip of the Gerard Butler movie called Plane, which is
and that's okay. And that's okay.
So dear viewers, I may be saving you a headache. of remembering that you've ever seen Plane. But what I do want to go over very quickly is that Plane involves and Tyler. If my memory serves me badly on this, let me know. Gerard Butler is flying a plane full of passengers out towards the Far East, say I think around Philippines.
Yes.
And the plane gets into trouble. He's of course carrying a prisoner because all plane, all
commercial airlines carry prisoners. Yes.
Yeah, all commercial vehicle, movies of action, in action films have to carry a prisoner now, and of course it's always the prisoner who turns out to be righteous. It's always a prisoner who turns out to be actually a nice guy. So I knew this was coming a mile away, or hundreds of miles away, or thousands of miles away, if you want to talk about an airplane. But in this case, there is an incident where Gerard Butler crash lands the plane on an on an Asian island. They immediately make enemies. Do you remember, Tyler? Do you remember the solving the problem of getting the passengers off the island?
Barely. Because this movie went seriously, I remember sitting down watching this movie with you, and I was actually kind of excited to see this because a number of people whose opinions I admire and respect were saying this is a very fun movie. I mean, I thought the title of the movie was really funny. Lew, I'm glad that you're speaking for my pick. Here's how forgettable this movie is. I don't even remember picking this as my worst of 2024. Like, the movie just went through me like raisins. I remember Mike Coulter, who plays the prisoner. He's pretty decent in it. He managed to get out of the movie unscathed. It's just that I also just remember that after the plane crashes, they start the plane up again at the end to try and fly it, even though the plane is totaled by that point. It is it's so absurd. It's so absurd. And the thing is that most of the action, because it's an action film too, but the action sequences themselves are not engaging at all. Like, it's not very well edited. It feels like it was cut within an inch of its life in certain areas. I think I don't know what kind of shoot they had. I'm not sure if they had any budget problems or if they had any logistical issues. But I also remember, the inhabitants of the country that they land in, every one of them being a stereotypical monster, which is an incredibly xenophobic presentation.
I had asked about that second flight that the plane takes, because it is really, and really one of the reasons why it made my worst was it was, to me, it was the most ridiculous scene that I had seen in any movie last year, where he had to where he has to convince people to get back on a plane that's running on rubber bands and Scotch tape. Basically.
Literally,
and say we got to fly 300 miles to an island and possibly crash the plane a second time, which they actually don't do.
The way they try to fix that plane, though, it's they don't take into account cabin pressure, change in atmospheres and stuff like that when they have to get the plane to fly out, and also take into account that the plane crashed. Even getting it off the ground would be impossible. But they managed to do it through movie magic, as they say.
Yeah, I was going to say the magic of movies. Let's let you remember another movie, because we're going to go to your next pick for for among the worst movies of the year. And here's one that you remember. So
Jesus Revolution, yes. As Luke gets the trailer fired up. Okay, so Jesus Revolution. It is a very well-made movie in terms of just photography and just kind of constructing it on the technical level. It is based on a true story about the figure Lonnie Frisbee, who becomes part of this church group. The big problem with this movie is that it erases one very important fact about the real-life Lonnie Frisbee. Lonnie Frisbee was a homosexual. This movie makes no mention of of his homosexuality, and I think you could have had a really interesting movie if the film decided to explore that and how that could possibly create conflict with his fellow Jesus hippie freaks, basically. But the fact that the Jesus freaks, essentially, but the fact that they erase his homosexuality, I think, is pretty unforgivable and unacceptable. And I wonder if they erase his homosexuality out of the fear that the audience, the target audience for this movie, would not accept this movie. Because unfortunately, and I know this isn't the case for everybody who is a Christian, but there are certain groups of Christians who do not look fondly upon homosexuality, and that has obviously created a lot of tension and a lot of real struggles for real life people. And this could have been a very fascinating exploration of this man, Lonnie Frisbee, but the fact that it completely erases his homosexuality, it's like, why are we even telling the story to begin with? Because if you're not going to tell the story accurately, why tell, or as accurately as you possibly can, why tell it all? And it's also an incredibly sanctimonious, schmaltzy movie. It gave me Patch Adams vibes, if you remember that Robin Williams vehicle from back in 1999, which Siskel and Ebert, they famously railed on in their review for it. I got a lot of Patch Adams vibes from this, and like Jesus Revolution, Patch Adams is very inaccurate to the real guy, Patch Adams, and this film kind of, for me, came off as very cliched, by the numbers, and again, the fact that it erases a very important fact about the real life Lonnie Frisbee, I found to be unacceptable.
Yeah, I had real problems with Jesus Revolution also. And, there were folks going on social media after the controversy that this movie created, and saying, well, I'm going to prove to you that Lonnie Frisbee was not gay, and they go through their motions and try to explain that he wasn't gay. Whether he considered himself gay or not, to me, doesn't matter. The fact is that he had sex with men. He contracted AIDS. He died in 1993,
Yes.
and the fact that he was a major part of a resurgentist movement that they said is the biggest spiritual revival in the history of American history, but that coincides with the political moves that they made, especially in the late 70s and into the 80s, riding on the backs of anti-gay, anti-LGBTQ policies. And that can't be ignored. So
Yeah.
the idea that, well, let's just kind of erase this sort of stuff. What this movie does in erasing it is that the big controversy in terms of where the movie goes is that the Lonnie Frisbee character is told that he's too theatrical. Of course, they don't never mention the fact that Lonnie Frisbee gets water baptism, okay, which is pretty darn theatrical, if you ask me.
Uh-huh.
So part of the problem here is that it undercuts their own argument, because if they wanted to actually make the argument and say, okay, look, he was wrong for heading up this movement because he is ungodly in this fact, and in being gay or whatever. If you wanted to make that point, make the point. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not going to agree with it. I'm way not going to agree with it. Not
Right.
at all.
Oh,
Absolutely. But if you really want the courage of your convictions in that way, then say it. Otherwise, what happens here is you undercut any tension that you could possibly give to the movie. It actually makes the film very, very boring in that sense.
Yes.
Because you could have had something that was tension filled and truly even more controversial, but at least you're able to start talking about those topics than to try and hide it which to me comes off as cowardly.
Agreed, 100%. Cowardly is the exact word I would describe it.
Yeah.
To just completely erase Lonnie Frisbee's homosexuality from this is cowardly. I would also call it offensive.
If you're not going to be truthful about these figures that may be controversial figures in ways that matter,
Yes.
okay, that has weight to the story that you're trying to tell, then what story are you trying to tell? Are you trying to tell? Are you trying to be truthful, or are you trying to be propagandistic?
And I think this film definitely leans towards the latter, propagandistic.
My next choice for a turd is about creatures who, leave turds that you got to pick up in bags. So here's my take on Strays. My runner-up stinkiest turd of 2023 is Strays, an alleged comedy that should have been spayed or neutered at conception to help control the cinematic shit population. This reprehensible film starred the voices of Will Ferrell as Reggie and Jamie Foxx as Bug, two dogs out in search of Reggie's owner, an abusive stoner and one of the least appealing comedy villains I've ever seen. Here's a sequence where the two dog pals munch on psychedelic mushrooms with two other dog pals, voiced by Isla Fisher and Randall Park, both of whom may want to alter their resumes after this movie.
Right?
All right. That should hold us. Solid dinner. All right, let's get moving. Oh, shit. Give me a sec.
Whoa, what the fuck? Hunter, your cone.
Oh, yeah, I know. I should probably take it off.
No, it's growing.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
It's amazing that Strays believes humor centered on getting high is still funny, and animal cruelty somehow ever was. Perhaps writer Dan Perrault and director Josh Greenbaum wanted to reference cringe comedies like There's Something About Mary, but that movie was 25 years ago, and the big climactic laugh of having Reggie chomp on his abuser's nuts is old enough to send their kids to college. Strays is one terrible scene after another, a real drag to sit through. Really rough movie.
That clip, I didn't laugh, but I can say I was horrified. Particularly just the fact that the dogs were eating psychedelic mushrooms. That's not really a good thing for a dog to eat. They're not going to be tripping so much as they're probably most likely going to die. So looking at that, which is kind of nightmare inducing.
Yeah, I know you were spared from having to watch this movie, so I will tell you one of the terrible, well, horrifying and terrible things, more like terrible things and decisions made for this movie, and is that you get to see the dogs' lips move and you get to hear their voices, yet none of the humans hear them. So it's a real non sequitur in there. I mean, why, if you're going to go through the motions of having those terrible lip movements, when I see on creatures, and having to sit through that for like 90 minutes, then just go through the whole thing. Have the humans be able to hear them. Why play around with this sort of thing? I mean, the movie Ted, they could hear, a teddy bear, I mean, why not? They don't even know natural animal instincts. The Will Ferrell dog is at one point in one scene extremely angry, Okay, extremely angry, but you can see the dog actually wagging its tail. Okay, now Tyler's got his next choice.
Oh God, this movie. All right, so yes, my next choice for the worst or the turds of 2023 is The Flush, also released in theaters as The Flash. And as we get this trailer going, in 2022, the Daniels released a film called Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a movie that deals with the multiverse and multiple timelines. And that turned out to be a really wonderful, fun, exciting, and incredibly touching and moving motion picture. Well, jack up the budget for it to near infinite degrees. I think this cost roughly $300 million. But instead of Michelle Yeoh, you replace Michelle Yeoh with a groomer, a sex offender, and a violent abuser in the form of Ezra Miller. And then you multiply Ezra Miller, not by two. So you get two annoying Ezra Millers, but there's also a third one that shows up that's also annoying. The Flash in this titular movie goes through multiple timeline experiences and manages to drag in classic, beloved superhero portrayals such as Michael Keaton as Batman in what is probably the saddest superhero performance I've ever seen. We also cross paths with the new Supergirl with Sasha Calle, who was the only character in this that made me feel things other than pure depression. And they had to fight General Zod, who was from the 2013 film Man of Steel. He is now back to wreak havoc and possibly end the world. And this film takes us into a jumbled mess of a storyline that culminates into really tasteless uses of the likeness of Christopher Reeve as Superman. We even get a glimpse of Nicolas Cage in CGI form as Superman, and all converging into basically the most unsatisfying ending of any superhero movie I think I've seen in recent memory. Oh, and for those who were excited about seeing Michael Keaton's triumphant return as Batman, in this movie, his entire timeline is completely erased. What a heartwarming, what a heartfelt tribute to such an iconic portrayal of the Caped Crusader. The best thing that I got from The Flash were these complimentary popcorn buckets, which once the trailer is done, we can just stop the trailer right now because I'm tired of looking at the CGI mess that is on the screen. And also, nobody looks like, and also in that trailer, nobody looks like they're at where they're supposed to be. Everything's clearly in front of a green screen. My favorite thing that came out of The Flash were these popcorn buckets, or if you want to take the John Waters approach, these are basically the Flash complimentary barf buckets. And you'll be doing that a lot when you look at some of the most horrendous looking CGI I think I've seen in a modern movie. Although that's saying something, because a lot of these big budget superhero movies are relying way too much on CGI. And it seems like a lot of the decisions made behind the scenes for some of the choices with the CGI, they feel like very last minute decisions. And the visual effects departments are overworked, and they're having to pull things out at the very last minute, resulting in effects that frankly look completely unfinished. And that's what this movie feels like. And with the budget like that, the only question I have to ask is that $300 million, where did that money go other than Ezra Miller's legal fees? Because it did not go into the movie. Lew, what did you think of The Flush?
Oh,
down the toilet.
Not much, except to say that it deserved to not do well as expected in the movies, along with Shazam: Fury of the Gods, along with Ant-Man, and Wasp.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Ant-Man and the Wasp. I wanted to say Ant-Man and the Wasp Woman, but but I'm mixing that up with a 50s sci-fi horror movie that is
probably better than what the movie we're talking about.
Oh yeah. Well, anyway, Ant-Man Quantumania and The Flash and Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and a number of other movies in 2023 and even going into 2024, just missing the mark
Yeah.
with fans, and not expanding their audiences. And you touched upon a number of things. I wasn't interested in the drama that was with the Ezra Miller character, even though he's kind of fighting along with his clone because of the death of his mother and everything. And the drama that was in Godzilla -1 was 10 times much better than this, which was sucky. There was also the drama in Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and it's like it's really cheapened, and like you say, the special effects look cheap. They look tired. I mean, they look like sort of some of the same things you've seen over and over again. The blue streaks and all. I mean, there's what the fuck was that?
I think the Flash crashed our stream there.
Well, what happened was we had a hailstorm come through here during our podcast, and it completely knocked out our power.
Yeah.
So we were right in the middle of finishing with the Flash. A hailstorm was a lot more exciting than watching the Flash.
And that's the real tragedy, because the thing is that the Flash is a character that's been an institution with DC for decades now, and so you could draw like many great stories from there. I understand that the CW did a very good job with the telling of the Flash in their television series. I mean, if the movie even drew from that, or if it drew from some of the other comics, I think we could have had like a pretty cool superhero film, especially since this is the Flash's big screen. Like this is the first Flash movie like that's made it to like the big screen, as far as I know. But unfortunately, alas, like you said, the hailstorm that knocked out our power in the midst of our discussion about the Flash was infinitely more interesting than the Flash itself. And I'm also going to take that hailstorm knocking out the power in our discussion of the Flash as a sign to let it be in the past, and we will move on to other things and never speak of that movie again.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, one last thing I'll make. With the exception of Ezra Miller, everybody involved in the movie deserved better.
Our bottom most turds of 2023. What was the very worst movie I saw in 2023? It was The Exorcist Believer, a turd that never should have existed. And here's me having to painfully tell you about it. Here's the clip. The very worst film I've seen in 2023 was The Exorcist Believer, the latest sequel in a franchise that never needed to exist. I call it a sequel, but part of the problem is the constant reminder of the iconic horror film directed by William Friedkin. Believer seems more like a remake than a sequel. For instance, a weird amulet is found in an exotic location, this time in Haiti. Forewarnings appear in a public market similar to the omens in the original film's Iraqi Cafe. And in this scene, one of two, count 'em, two possessed girls is taken into a hospital room, kicking and screaming for evaluation. The original Exorcist hospital setting is cold, stark, and unforgiving, but this exam room looks like any other setting in a generic medical TV show.
Calm down. You're gonna feel better soon. Be careful there, sir. Careful there. Okay, let's get her in the bed, but let's wait until she comes down. Honey, you're gonna go to bed. You're gonna go to sleep soon. You're gonna go to sleep soon. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. You can wait until she comes down. Calm down. You're gonna go to bed soon. You're gonna go to sleep soon. Let's go ahead and get a full set of vitals. Your blood pressure, heart rate, respiratory rate, oxygen level.
The entire premise of this garbage centers on the return of Ellen Burstyn as Chris McNeil. She returns long enough to say the exorcism should be a group effort instead of by one or two priests, then gets her eyes stabbed out, remaining out of commission for the rest of the film. Director and co-writer David Gordon Green should have known better. He's made classic films like George Washington, Undertow, and Snow Angels, but he's completely out in the woods here, and it's a major signal to other filmmakers. Don't add on to this franchise. It's a fool's errand. I can't imagine that smart filmmakers would say, "Yeah, let's try and do a sequel to The Exorcist."
Yeah, one of the greatest horror
knowing
films
what
of
the
all
track
time.
record was for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So let's try and make a sequel to one of the greatest horror films of all time. I mean, I'll say, like, throughout the clip that you showed, I was cracking up because I was thinking of a way that to perhaps improve the scene, because you had the little girl screaming, you just had the doctor constantly saying, "Okay, calm down, calm down, calm down, just shut the fuck." Would have been a vast improvement, especially because David Gordon Green went on to do comedies like Pineapple Express and all that stuff. So it's like, why not just go and make an Exorcist, make it a comedy at this point? I mean, we've seen it done as a great horror film. We've seen them try to recapture the magic. Never at the level that William Friedkin and company did with that film.
Don't remind me of an iconic movie. You've got to be a better movie than what you're presenting, instead of having these little Easter eggs where you say, "Hey, you see, I just want to remind you, you're watching The Exorcist. We're in a family of great films." No, you're not. There hasn't. I know you have a slight disagreement with me, but I've not seen a good sequel to the original Exorcist. For me, there just hasn't been.
Well,
This is one more on the pile.
I personally do kind of like the film Exorcist 3, the William Peter Blatty directed film with George C. Scott. Ultimately, when it comes to The Exorcist, as Lew's having his exorcism right now,
yeah,
we have not seen a single Exorcist film that has reached the heights of the 1973 original. Lew, we went to a revival screening of The Exorcist at the Music Box in December of 2023 last year. The place was filled with people, and some people who had never seen it before. To sit back and watch this movie that I had seen many times now, because it's one of my favorite horror films, and it's also one of my favorite William Friedkin films. To hear the collective gasps and expressions of shock was magic. It was incredible. I felt like I transported back to 1973 hearing that. And none of the films, not even Exorcist 3, really come close to matching that, because The Exorcist, the movie itself, it really is like lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And even like especially trying to recapture it in today's day and age, which, okay, like, what are they doing with this one? Oh, it's the same story, only there's more exorcists that have to happen, because there's two girls that are possessed, and instead of two priests who are there for very specific reasons, and one of them has a very specific character arc that he has to go through. In fact, I would say he's the main character, hence the title, The Exorcist, in the Jason Miller role of Damian Karras. Here now it's a group of exorcists, and that little clip that you showed where one of them is having their head turned in a 360-degree angle. It looked ridiculous, and two, like you mentioned, it's basically an Easter. It's a call to something I had seen before. It's like, I've seen the 360-degree head turn already. It was awesome in 1973. You have to do something different here with this. And from what you're describing and from what I'm seeing here, it doesn't look like it does anything particularly different, other than perhaps rile the specter of William Friedkin, who is no longer with us. I remember going to take my dad to see Oppenheimer, and they played the trailer for The Exorcist Believer. And as soon as the trailer was over, he said out loud, "Hard no."
Your dad is a smart man. Unfortunately, we're going to talk about your choice for the Turd of the Year and talking about not smart films.
Yeah.
Here is your choice.
My number one worst of 2023 was the controversial box office runaway hit, Sound of Freedom. Okay, so this is a theoretically a dramatic action film, and I say theoretically because the action is neither dramatic nor thrilling. It focuses on it's actually based off of the supposed true story of Tim Ballard, who was an agent for Homeland Security, on his mission to round up as many child abuse traffickers and also the child victims as much as he can. Now, you have the makings of a fairly, compelling story given the dark subject matter here. But right out of the gates, this film is not particularly interested in exploring like the deeper themes and also the deeper circumstances when it comes to such difficult subject matter, as much as it is basically in the exploitation of children, because the film opens with a girl being picked up for a photo shoot, and we spend an uncomfortable amount of time in that photo shoot to where it basically becomes exploitation. It becomes the very thing it purports itself to criticize. Now, if you want to make a dramatic motion picture about a very serious subject matter like child trafficking, make that movie. If you want to make an exploitation film about that subject matter, I don't recommend it. But if you're going to make an exploitation film, make an exploitation film. This is trying to have it both ways, and those two clashing approaches to telling this kind of a story completely undermines anything that they were trying to say that's meaningful about this. And speaking of the Tim Ballard character, Jim Caviezel is in this, and he plays the role of Tim Ballard. And it is my pick for the single worst performance of 2023. The guy is practically sleepwalking throughout all of this. He is not compelling as an action star in this. He's not compelling as a dramatic actor. And the funny thing is that once upon a time, he was a leading man, sometimes in action films like The Count of Monte Cristo. He was even the lead in a Terrence Malick film called The Thin Red Line. And, oh boy, this guy. I'm not going to say too much about him because it's going to detract from the movie. There's a whole bunch of stuff surrounding the movie that's really unfortunate and gross and icky, but that's neither here or there. The focus on this discussion here is the movie itself. Okay, we're going to ignore the controversy. We're going to ignore the accusations about the people involved with making this picture, although there are a numerous amount. The film itself, does it work? And for me, it is a resounding no. The action is dull. The drama is not engaging. Jim Caviezel gives a truly unconvincing performance of this as Tim Ballard. And worst of all, it becomes the very thing that it criticizes in terms of the exploitation of children, because it straight up exploits the children in this. And also the children aren't really given much characters. They're just more so objects that Tim Ballard has to go and collect from the bad guys. I thought the film was just repugnant from start to finish, and I'm glad that we had the chance to watch it together, Lew, and that and so that you could see for yourself how bad it was. And I'm glad that we're talking about it now, because it means I'd never have to even think about this movie again. Yeah.
Except for right now.
Right now, yes. But after this, I'd never have to think about it again. And I look forward to that with great pleasure.
Yeah, you basically touch on all the points, all the salient points here about the movie. Back in the 30s, 40s, 1930s, 40s, when you have an exploitation film, you have something along the lines of Reefer Madness, for instance,
right?
And you do exactly as you said. You have a movie that exploits the very vice that that it's trying to warn about and all. You could have a campy sort of value about that with Reefer Madness or Sex Madness, those sort of things. But with this, it's so incredibly unpleasant. And I kind of feel sorry for the people who support this movie and say, oh well, you know, if you don't like it, then you must be in favor of child exploitation. Okay, I don't want to say the
Right.
exact words because
Mhm.
of because of YouTube, but you're in favor of that. That's complete nonsense. And the thing is that, like you mentioned, I don't think, to you folks out there who may be one of those people, if you happen to be watching, I don't think you understand that you're being fooled here.
Yes,
Okay,
you are.
when you have uh, scenes that are exploiting children the way they do in this movie, that undercuts, that is salivating towards really people who are really unpleasant. Okay,
Right.
and Tyler's mentioning, he didn't want to mention, but look into the background of some of the people involved with Sound of Freedom, and it's those type of people. Okay,
Yes.
you gotta, folks who are supporting this movie, you gotta know that. Okay,
Yes, you do.
so we're here, we're telling you, we're warning you. All right,
And that is including but not limited to the subject himself, Tim Ballard, who he himself has basically exploited and also compromised the anonymity of the victims, of the people that he has purportedly rescued from this. Like, he's compromised their identities, and like, people know who they are now, which is something you really don't want to do.
Right.
Okay, and okay, if you want to bring up a good example of a film that explores like the horrors of child abuse and child trafficking, check out the Lynn Ramsey film "You Were Never Really Here," starring Joaquin Phoenix. Because that man is a bounty hunter who is on the hunt for these predators and trying to find these victims, and that is a more thoughtful examination of the horrors of having to do that kind of work. And it shows like how the work really takes a toll on the man's sanity, because he has to go and see like these unspeakably awful things.
Mhm.
And that's, for me, it's like, okay, people say, oh, you don't like Sound of Freedom, you support this. It's like, why don't you try watching a movie that actually handles the subject matter like an adult, like You Were Never Really Here. And also you get to see a really terrific performance by Joaquin Phoenix. That's what I would say. And
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, and two more points that I wanted to make. Yes, you were absolutely right about Jim Caviezel, and I want to bring up the point that I also believe Jim Caviezel somehow got away from a Razzie nomination because he gave the worst performance of any lead male actor this year, and he actually went on to TV shows, TV interviews, and talked about how important this movie was, how compelling this movie, the subject matter was to him, and how important it was to him and all. Act like it. Act like it. Don't stand there like a pane of glass. Where there's just nothing to look at. You might as well look at the wall behind you.
Right.
You're just not. It's just not. It's not compelling at all. And we're not saying this just because we may disagree with maybe the politics of maybe the filmmakers and everything. I've mentioned that. In Jesus Revolution, Kelsey Grammer gives a good performance.
Yeah, he does.
He gives a good performance, and he went. He did interviews, and he said, "These are the types of movies I want to make." And he even broke out in tears. It's like, yeah, he gave a good performance. So it means something to him. If you're gonna go and say, Sound of Freedom really meant something to you, then where is it on the screen? It's a really, really bad performance. And I want to mention one thing too, because you brought up federal agents. in this movie and in other movies and in some movies that are going to be talking about in the Razzies, there's something about these bad movies where they don't like federal agents, or they think they're lazy, they think they're stupid. I mean, I'll be talking about one where they practically don't even know about a person who is working clandestinely under them, and it's really incredibly insulting because in on the one hand you're saying that they're a really powerful force, and they may be involved in a conspiracy or something like that. So you've got to if you want to convince us that they're conspiratorial, then you've got to convince us that they're very smart and they're very organized and and all of these things. But you can't at the same time show them looking lackadaisical and sitting back in their chairs like they might as well be putting their feet up, and that the action in this is glacially slow, and not bringing up any tension whatsoever. It's not convincing.
No.
If you want to make a case, that you're really fighting some powers in a conspiratorial mode, you gotta be convincing. You got it much more tension-filled, action-filled, compelling actors, people who know how to act. I'm sorry, not everybody is like that, but you got to have a lead actor who's coming to work, who's punching at 9 to 5. So so Sound of Freedom. The only reason why it didn't make the absolute worst turd of the year is because this is a smaller budgeted film, and a film that doesn't rely on pre-sold material like The Exorcist, but it's a really terrible film.
It is, and thank you for closing out our discussion of Sound of Freedom, because I am now ready to never talk about this movie again.
Oh, hopefully not. But what we can talk about is that I had a really fun time.
I did too. Thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. I had a very, very fun time with you, Tyler Pistorius, filmmaker and actor and producer and writer of a short film called
Death is Business, which is currently making its way into the film festival circuits. Once we have some confirmed submissions, I will let you all know. And in the meantime, I'm just going to focus on the next thing, whatever that ends up being. And at the same time, going to be checking out some more good movies, whether they be low budget or big budget or no budget. I mean, there are definitely very good no budget movies, especially the ones made locally. I'm hoping to see some of those. And Lew, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, and yes, definitely when Death is Business is making its rounds and goes public, we will definitely announce it on the Mediatrocities Facebook page, so keep a lookout for it. And if you don't know how to get to the Mediatrocities Facebook page, my goodness, just look down below right there at the little banner that's there at the link tree, linktr.ee/LEWOJEDA. That will give you to everything Lew Ojeda and Mediatrocities, both on Facebook and on YouTube, and I think Threads, although I'm not sure, but there'll be more added on. If it's not on Thread, if that Threads is not on there yet, it will be soon, I'm sure. But Facebook and YouTube for sure. And until next time, thank you so much for watching Mediatrocities. Our next show is going to be a look at the Razzies, so you'll want to definitely take a look for that. So until next time, thank you so much. Thank you to Tyler Pistorius, and I thank you, and have yourself a wonderful day. Take care. Bye now.